And that goes to informed consent, and that goes to everything that we've talked about. And that goes to trusting looking at the data, having the conversations, and absolutely, yes. You know, I've said it since the beginning, and I'll say it again. I'm a nurse. I look at everything through that lens. I look at this as this committee, and the purpose of this hearing is, what did we do right, what did we do wrong, and what do we need to fix so we don't do it again? And I'm going to keep saying that over and over, and I'm going to keep working on that. And I think that that's right. That I believe that there's a lot of people that made poor decisions on poor information. And I think that that's important to look at. But the fact that there's less than 2%, that gives me hope.
If we ever have a mass vaccination campaign ever again in this country on a novel vaccine, every state ought to form their own safety committee. And every state ought to say, listen, we're going to take a look at what's going on in our state and have our ears open to reports. If we're ever going to have government-sponsored vaccine centers ever again, which we did at the very beginning, they ought to be making safety reports into an oversight committee, and we better have weekly or monthly reports on what could be happening. America was in a fear-driven trance. I interviewed a paramedic. His name is Harry Fisher. And he told me vignette after vignette of being called to the vaccine centers, which early on people were waiting in line for these vaccines. And there would be vaccine recipients who suffered cardiac arrests right there. It was so common that the vaccine centers set up a policy that you had to take the shot and you had to wait. You had to wait there, wait in your car, because maybe you were going to have a cardiac arrest. That's what was going on. He was being called out there, and he was doing CPR. They were shocking patients. And he remembers looking over his shoulder, and no one got out of line. That told you something. People were in a fear-driven trance. They were driven out of fear. They had a year of being locked down. They were scared to death of what they saw on the TV. And they got in line for that vaccine, and they believed the vaccine was going to protect them from death. Mm-hmm. And when there was a cardiac arrest right in front of them, it didn't dissuade them from taking a vaccine. I think this is a powerful vignette. It's a powerful observation. The public can be manipulated. The term is called PSYOP, a psychological operation. It happens, whether it happens intentionally, unintentionally, by keep presenting fearful information. And we saw this on the media through all the messaging systems. So America, in many ways, like all the other countries in the world, were prepared for mass vaccination. People were ready to get in line. My patients were asking me incessantly about the vaccine and which one they should take. And the concerns. I never have a patient ask me about the vaccine now. But boy, I remember in December of 2020, for sure, that was the talk. And I remember the news stories about the first shipments of vaccines and people on the side of the road cheering. It was almost like, like a post-war victory type of thing. And the welcome home, the savior is going to be Pfizer at that time. But if we've learned anything, every state ought to say, okay, wow, there's a next pandemic. We've been told, by the way, that there's going to be another pandemic. Right. I think everybody should understand this. Tedros at the WHO, who's in an official capacity. Bill Gates at the Gates Foundation, which is the leading financial supporter of the World Health Organization. Anthony Fauci, who is still on TV, plays a major advisory role at the WHO currently. He hasn't given up that spot. And then vaccine developer, promoter Peter Hotez at Baylor in Houston. They all publicly have said there will be another pandemic for sure. And it's going to be way worse than COVID. COVID was just a warm-up for that. Well, I've asked many experts, what will be the next pandemic? The consensus answer is it's going to be another engineered virus, because the United States and so many countries are in the business of engineering viruses in biolabs or biosecurity labs. This is very important. This is a major book of business. The U.S. government is deep into biological threat developments. On the government websites of the NIH, the CDC, the Department of State, the National Security Agency, the FBI, the CIA, and the Department of Energy all have statements regarding the origins of SARS-CoV-2. Why would so many government agencies be involved in something like SARS-CoV-2? is because the U.S. has an enormous investment in this. Our U.S. House of Representatives a few months ago voted 419-0 to declassify all of our documents on the Wuhan lab. Declassify. Avril Haines, the Director of National Intelligence, who is a former associate of the World Economic Forum and who participated in Event 201 with George Gao, the Chinese CDC director, on how they would deceive America on the origins of the virus. That was in Event 201. Avril Haines has still not declassified the documents. Josh Hawley in the Senate wrote her a letter. So listen, you're late. Where are the documents? The United States government is part and parcel of this problem in a deep way. They have just issued more funding to Peter Daszak at the EcoHealth Alliance to develop more infectious viruses, more infectious coronaviruses, another version of COVID. It's in development. The money's been issued. The EcoHealth Alliance is now shuttling that money over to Duke University in Singapore to work on bat coronaviruses that they'll harvest from China. So the underlying problem is not corrected. We need a moratorium on gain-of-function research. We need a moratorium on biological threat development. We need a moratorium on messenger RNA biotechnology. And to the extent that states can ban this or restrict it or surveil it in some way would be at an advantage to the people of the state.
Yes, absolutely.